Hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Shyam Kishore. We are joined by Sanjeev Sanyal ji, member PM Economic Advisory Council and better recognized as an expert who narrates India in its truest, oldest and most fascinating form. Sanjeev Sanyal ji, very welcome to Sansad TV. How you will describe this budget in one word?
I think the key thing about the budget is that it's a very solid, no-nonsense budget, very workman-like. There are no flourishes, there's no populist announcements. There are two things that will define it. First, there is a clear emphasis on macroeconomic stability. The economy is growing very well, it's growing at over 7%, there's no inflation. So if we do not invest into macro stability now, when will we? So if you see, there's been complete control on the fiscal side. The debt to GDP ratio is now clearly declining. Not a trivial thing given what's happening in the rest of the world. And you're seeing the fiscal deficit come down to 4.3%. In fact, the primary deficit will be down at 0.7%. So very well controlled and fiscal. And on the other hand, certain very long-term things which may not benefit us immediately but have been put in place. For example, 10-year import tax holiday for the nuclear plants, 21-year tax holiday for data centers, things like that, which have been put in place.
Capital expenditure is at its high, 12.2 lakh crores, almost 1 lakh crore increase from the previous year. This is something very significant. How would you elaborate?
So this is not new. If you see from the COVID times, there has been a clear, distinct change in the mix of the central government budget towards capital expenditure. And it has worked well in the sense it has both created demand through the recovery phase, but it has also created assets on the supply side. So that has been our strategy and it's worked well, and we see no reason not to continue with that strategy. But in addition to that, if you have seen, we have also now significantly upped the game on defense spending. That's also another kind of investment. But after Operation Sindoor and also given the uncertainties geopolitically, I think it's a fair thing that we have upped our spending, particularly capital spending on the defense side as well.
But at the same time, the market borrowings are also at its high, like more than 17 lakh crores and almost 2.5 lakh crores greater than the previous budget. How would you see this?
So if you look at the deficit, that's not where it's coming from. A lot of it is rollover debt. The deficit itself is, as I said, 4.3% of GDP. Of course, the GDP is growing, so the number itself is bigger. But I think it's well within control, and our Indian financial markets are more than capable of taking, rolling over this level of debt.
PM has described this budget as Reform Express. What does it mean?
So I think the budget itself, but also more widely the kinds of policies that have happened. So in fact, this has been appreciated and quite widely in the international press as well. That in the last 1 year, we have seen a slew of major reform efforts. For example, the second generation of GST, the announcement of labor reforms, which many people thought there would be major unrest. At least 10-15 years ago they would have been, but our labor laws have been changed without any major stress on the system. The slew of FTAs, we did one with the UK, just last week we did one with the European Union. So there has been a slew of those happening, and then all of this is happening, as I said, while maintaining macroeconomic stability. And even in the budget, if you see everybody wants some big bang thing. There is actually a large number of small process reforms here that are very, very critical. And as many of you may know, I am an advocate of these process reforms. So let's take one area, customs. We are doing all these FTAs, but the valve through which exports will go out and imports will come in is our customs system. There have been major complaints about its inefficiency. So you will see that in the budget speech, a significant amount of it was spent by the Honorable Finance Minister talking about the customs system. Why? because that has to be really smooth. You can build all the infrastructure in the world you want, all the FTAs in the world. If your customs system, the processes there are inefficient, it won't work. So you see, that is something we cleaned up, and that's clearly in the fiscal space, so that's why it came. Similarly, we have got rid of a lot of irritants, ease of living kind of reforms on the income tax front. The new income tax code is going to come on into play. So, it's not that it's about one thing here and one thing there. There's a consistency to it beyond just the budget announcements itself.
In the long term, one can see the results.
Yes.
Okay, the schemes which have been announced, like in agriculture, MSME or textile sector, all those are focusing towards generating more employment. Are they really going to actualize on ground?
Well, that's obviously the hope, but only data will prove what we are trying to do. But let's be clear what we are trying to do. Styles into account. This has to be said, as I said, in the context of the FTAs we have just signed. We have signed these FTAs. We will now get preferential is not the word, but certainly lower tax access to these European markets, for example, or the UK. Or other places also where we have signed up, UAE. And so now these markets are for us to go and exploit. Those countries have said, okay, come here and exploit these markets. But in the end, we will only be able to do this if there is an industry here that is capable of doing it. And I mentioned one of the pipelines of this is the customs system. But there is also other issues here. For example, availability of man-made fibers. There's not there in the budget, but we did get rid of several of the QCOs.
But mentioned in economic survey, I think.
So you have to see the totality of it. It's not just about a policy here, a policy there.
There were demands for credit guarantee for MSMEs and SMEs. Do you think that adequate provisions have been made in this budget for that?
Well, we can always increase them, but I think there has been a lot of discussion about significantly expanding the ECGC, Export Credit Guarantees Institution, and we'll see how that goes on. And more resources were recently given to it, but we can give more if necessary.
Two things I would like to ask regarding the mapping of economic region, specifically that tier 2 and tier 3 cities. What is the wider aspect of it? And secondly, formation of high level committees on banking for Viksit Bharat. These have been mentioned, but for the benefit of the viewers, we would like to know in detail about these two major announcements.
So if you look at what has happened over the last decade, you will remember that India's banking system was a major risk to our economy till about maybe a decade ago. We were part of the Fragile Five. There was a twin deficit problem, and that was the center of a lot of the policy discussions of that time. We took a whole bunch of tough decisions in the period 2017 to 19. Cleaned up the banks using the insolvency and bankruptcy case framework. Some of our largest companies of this country were bankrupted. We took the pain, but the net result of that is that we have a much more robust financial system today than was the case a decade ago. The economic survey mentioned that the net NPA level is now down to 0.5%.
Yes.
That's the multi-decade low. So we now have a banking system that is robust. Similarly, we have the equity markets. People don't realize today that Mumbai actually raises more money than London, which was considered the world's financial capital. We are on the top three. Shanghai, New York, and Mumbai are the top three places to raise money globally. So we now have a financial system that is large. But if we want, we want to be the world's third largest economy. We want to be playing in that league. Then we need to, we have to go past just cleaning it up and getting it here. We need to make it future ready. We need to get into new areas of financing, particularly financing cutting edge research and startups. There are a whole bunch of other things we need to do that we need to be able to get our financial system now to be able to do. So in that context, we have in the past had similar committees which gave useful sort of roadmaps. I think the time has come to do another one. As I said, we have now gone past the let's clean up the system and get it somewhere phase. We now need to we are no longer in we are now at the frontiers of the system, of the global financial system, and we now need to take that begin to play in that way.
Like when Jan Dhan accounts were created for almost more than 50 crore people, then do we feel that still some of them are there who are out of that financial network?
So they may be. We need to look into that. This is the sort of thing that that committee has to look into.
Okay. AI has become the buzzword, and this time it has been mentioned for almost 11 times, either in healthcare sector or service sector or so many sectors. How we are going to really actualize the benefits of AI, which has become the buzzword of today?
So first of all, AI is a major opportunity, and it happens to be that we are actually already a reasonably large player in it in one way or the other. One is, of course, we have our own AI players, but if you take any major global AI player, they have big operations in India already. You take Google or whoever, I mean Amazon, all of them have very, very big operations somewhere in Bangalore, Hyderabad or some other place. So we need to create further infrastructure, physical infrastructure for it, and this is the context in which we have gone into giving subsidies, or rather a tax break, to the cloud guys, the data centers, because not having some amount of capacity in data centers, we already did that with chips manufacturing earlier. This is kind of another step in that, creating the ecosystem. Because if you don't have your data centers, in some ways it's like leaving your foreign exchange reserve to somebody else's care. They can always switch it off. So we are consequently investing in bits and pieces. Some of it, of course, the private sector has to generate. Some of it will come from FDI. But at least we have to create the ecosystem. And there's a lot to be done. I mean, GPUs and all kinds of things need to be done. So this is a part of the bigger agenda.
And that data center, creating data center in our country is so important that we have given almost tax holiday for 20 years.
21 years, yes.
21 years.
And so it is important, as I said, if you think of data as being the new oil, then your data center is your oil well. So you have to have at least some capacity in this. Otherwise, you will end up with being entirely at the mercy of those who control the data centers and the cloud.
One more term which appeared was something new for the common man, orange economy, in which it has been announced that almost 15,000 in schools, 15,000 schools across the country will be having that type of lab, and 500 colleges will be having that type of lab where animation and creation and that type of content would be created. It is being claimed that by 2030 it will generate almost 2 million jobs.
See, a lot of AI is going to really change the way creativity is done. Whether, of course, animation is one way. There are all kinds of other things that will happen. The way we consume news, the way fashions spread, all kinds of things will happen. Even fake news and cyber security. So all of these will be related to this ecosystem that is emerging, and you can't separate out any bit from each other. You can use some of this for entertainment, but the same is also useful for cybersecurity. So we need to create a next generation of people in this space. Typical, the way curriculums, etc., evolve. These things are not in the usual subject list. And so we thought that, let's begin exposing the next generation to some of these things. And so that's where we are coming from.
Medical tourism is again the next focus area, I think.
So medical tourism is not new in India. We have been doing this for some time. And even well before COVID, it was big. Some of the neighboring countries were doing it, but I think we've got to begin to move out from, to the next level, so to speak. So far, basically, some of the relatively more underdeveloped countries in the region, they would come here because they don't have whatever cancer or other facilities, and India had it. But I think we are coming to a stage where we can actually provide this to the world. There is no real reason, in an environment where, for example, in the UK, their national health system is in severe stress. Canada has the same problem. I mean, getting basic operations and so on done in the UK or Canada, you might have to, queue up for years. Whereas they can come here, and do those operations. We have the facilities, and we can expand it more if necessary.
And I think this time the focus is on the Indian way of medicine and alternate.
That too, yes. There is alternative systems.
Of Ayurvedas they are going to.
Yeah, so there is, there is the issue of course, conventional medical health, but we can take a look at more traditional, holistic medical systems as well. This whole Ayush effort has been in play for some time, and we have found that there are many areas where we are doing quite well, and there's no reason why we shouldn't expand it further.
On education front, there are some significant announcements like university, the township is a new concept, and committee on education and employment and entrepreneurship, and the girls hostel.
There are many responses to evolving situation. So whether university town, for example, the university is there, but what happens in India very often, let's take Kharagpur. The university, the IIT in Kharagpur is not connected to the rest of the city. Whereas if you go to, say, Oxford or you go to Boston, the university actually creates the kernel of a wider economic system, whether there are people living there, they are doing startups, all kinds of things happen. So we need to begin to think of the university as being a part of a urban ecosystem, rather than think of it something with walls and where you go inside, take lectures and leave after 4 years.
SHE, S-H-E, self-help entrepreneurship has been again a word which is doing the rounds. Inspired by the Lakpati Didi, they are going again there. So far they were gaining that benefits out of the credit. Now they are going to be the owners of the entrepreneurs and companies. How do you say this?
So the idea is to create grassroots entrepreneurship and risk taking. There has been historically a view that risk taking is for a few people up there. The people at the grassroots, the best they can aspire for is work hard and get themselves a government job if they don't want to continue in their traditional profession. So the idea here is to kind of democratize risk taking, entrepreneurship, innovation and so on.
Sanjeev Sanyal ji, thanks a lot for joining us, and with your wisdom decoding the budget for us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you viewers for watching Sansad TV. Keep watching Sansad TV.